when Catherine and I finished the mittens, I had some new dish towels that I had made. I sent her one, and I just love that she has it. And every time I use one of the ones from that set, I think of her and how wonderful it was to collaborate with her. So yeah, little pieces of me.
Hello and welcome to the New York Guild of Handweavers Member Spotlight. My name is Katie Clements and I am the membership chair of the Guild. With almost 200 members, the New York Guild of Handweavers provides inspiration, information, and mutual support to anyone interested in weaving, tapestry, spinning, or fiber arts through speakers, workshops, as well as our lending library. Go to nyhandweavers.org for more information. Today we will talk with New York Guild member Francesca Heller. Born in New York City, Francesca has lived here all but the 6 years she was in elementary school. She went to the High School of Performing Arts and was in their drama department. In college, she focused on theater her first 2 years. She changed her focus in her junior year to child development. A master's degree in early childhood education followed and led to a 40-year career in that profession. When she was 10, a family friend who was a weaver went for an extended stay in Europe, and the friend's loom was kept in Francesca's basement. She remembers sitting on the stairs looking at it in awe. However, it wasn't until several decades later that Francesca learned how to weave, and now has been doing so for over 40 years. During that time, knitting has been her most consistent craft. Along the way, she has explored sewing clothing for herself and her son when he was young. She also has done crocheting, macramé, papermaking, and embroidery. Music is Francesca's other main interest. She has been playing the flute on and off since elementary school and has been taking lessons again for the past 6 or 7 years. She's been singing with the community chorus since the late 1990s, and she currently lives in Riverdale. Welcome, Francesca.
Thank you, Katie, for having me. This is a treat.
It's a treat for me, and thank you for being part of the Member Spotlight series. So let's hear a bit about yourself and a bit about your background, how you got started in fiber art.
Well, as I look back on it, I actually got started with sewing when I was in the 5th grade. I made a skirt, clearly with my mother's help, for an assembly that we had to kind of have a uniform. So I made the skirt and I continued sewing probably through most of my life, on and off. When my son was little, I made him flannel shirts and corduroy overalls, and he was to die for. He looked so great. I don't remember learning to knit or crochet, but when I was 13 or 14, I designed and made a bed jacket for my grandmother. It was a shrug, it was pink, it had a drop stitch in it. So as I was planning it, I had to experiment to find out the proportions between the drop and what was still knit. And I crocheted a border all the way around and around the sleeves and put ribbon in the crocheting at the sleeves so she could adjust it. I remember this really, really clearly. So obviously at that point, I knew what I was doing. My trajectory with weaving is a little odd. We lived in Westchester when I was in elementary school, and we had a house, and a friend who was a weaver was going to Europe for an extended stay. In fact, she never came back. And she stored her loom in our basement. And I remember it was right in the middle, and there was almost nothing around it. I don't know how we managed to have such an empty basement. But I used to sit on the stairs and just look at it in absolute awe. You know, like, what is this thing and how does it work? But I didn't start weaving for a few decades later. I guess it just wasn't the right time. Along the way, I dabbled in embroidery, macramé. I made paper on and off. And these are things that have kind of stayed with me. So I eventually got to weaving. There was a school in the Riverside Church Tower, a craft school. And that's where I initially learned to weave. And you'll see later, there's a photograph of the first thing that I wove after my sampler, and it's really worth talking about. So we'll get to that. And I stopped weaving when my son was little and then started again. When I started again, I looked for a teacher, and a couple of people recommended Peggy Osterkamp. And so I was fortunate enough to get hooked up with Peggy, who remains a friend. And I've just sort of been barreling along since then.
So then you went to college for drama, and then
I went to the School of Performing Arts in New York in the drama department, high school.
Wow.
And then when I was in college, the first 2 years I was in theater.
And then you pivoted.
I did.
Yeah. So what was it about early childhood education that made you change your focus away from drama and theater?
I had been very reluctant to get involved in it. I had to student teach as field work for a child development course that I was taking, and I really didn't want to do it. But, it ended up grabbing me. I can still feel being in the classroom of 3-year-olds, watching these little people come in and just thinking to myself, wow, these are little people. And I was just fascinated. I worked with a wonderful teacher. She was miraculously sensitive and supportive of me and of these little people, and just watching them grow and beginning to get a sense of them getting a sense of who they were. It just, it fascinated me. So there I went.
Well, drama was a good, or theater was a good background, because now you have an audience of these.
Well, someone pointed out to me, another person who had been in theater and then went into education, that when you work with young children, you need to have a heightened affect. And that's the segue.
Knowing your audience and knowing how to deliver to your audience.
Right. And knowing the energy required to engage them.
During your early childhood education career, did you utilize your knowledge of crafts in your work?
One year when I was teaching 4-year-olds, I did a whole unit, for want of a better word, on weaving. We started with paper weaving and did 3 different kinds as their skill developed. And then I made looms out of cardboard boxes and tore up fabric into strips so that they could weave with those. And then we went on to pot holders, 4 and 5-year-olds. And they loved it. And some of them were really, really good. They really got into it and knew what they were doing and could figure out color stuff. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. That's the only time I used crafts in my teaching.
Right. Okay, so first photo, let's hear about this work. Beautiful.
This was a design collaboration between Kay Fassett, who designed the knitting part of it, and Nikki Epstein, who designed the embellishments. And it was a Rowan yarn. It was used double, and it was supposed, where all that tan is in the body of it, it was supposed to be gray, which would have totally changed the look of the sweater. But when I bought the yarn, they didn't have any gray, and I wanted to start right away. So this is what I did. As you can see, it was hemmed all around. It's beaded, and it was a lot of fun to make.
And I hope you wear it.
I do. In fact, I was at a Vogue Knitting Live a couple of years ago. I had it folded over my arm because it was hot in there. And people kept stopping me and saying, "What is that you're holding?" So I couldn't get away from it. Even with it folded up, people were calling attention to it.
Beautiful. Let's hear this one.
Katie, this is the first thing I made after my sampler.
Oh my gosh, you got into garments so quickly. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And it used my sewing skills because it's lined. It used my macrame skills. The buttons are monkey fists, which is a macrame knot. It's really the only macrame thing that I have retained through my whole life. I make bookmarks using monkey fists. But when I finished the sampler, I don't remember if I did that on a floor loom or a table loom. But the teacher wanted me to continue on a table loom. And I looked at her and said, "That's for me, that is not weaving. I want to use my feet and my hands." And so I did this on a floor loom.
So beautiful.
And I do wear this.
Good, good.
This is a bog coat. It was done in two sections, two long sections, I think. And it required almost no sewing because the sleeves are continuous with the top of it.
Oh yes, I see the seam right here.
Yeah, that's where it is. So it was too big. It was a lot of yardage, and then it was two big rectangles. And I think the only place I had to cut it was around the neck.
Oh, I love that construction. Do you feel like all the crafts you did before helped you as a weaver?
I think in terms of conceptualizing what I was doing, I've used pieces as I did in this of other things. I guess so, but I'm not that conscious of it.
Oh, this makes me let's hear it.
I worked for a woman who embroidered wall hangings for about a year back in the early 70s. I had a friend whose father was in the upholstery business, and he gave me a bunch of fabric samples. If I don't know if you can tell, but these are, a lot of them are the same fabric in different colors.
Oh,
So it all held together. Every seam is embroidered with a different stitch. And I had a wonderful fun making this. And I used to wear it, but I've gotten a little bigger, and I'm afraid to put it on because I'm afraid I won't be able to get it off again. So I don't quite know what to do about it because I would love to wear it again. I'm an Aquarius, so in that yellow square is a symbol for Aquarius, and the bird is my dove of peace.
oh, beautiful. I know Spider is a weaver.
Yeah.
Great. Wow, look at this. And I see this beautiful detail here. Oh, that's great. Oh, and this, what does this symbolize?
That's a cattail, two cattails, and the it's done in silk. The yarn is silk yarn. and it's puffy. I mean, it's pile.
Mhm.
It's not flat.
Beautiful. Oh, this caught my attention. Let's hear the story about this one.
This is a Donna Karen design. It's called New York Skyline. And the way she designed it, the buildings were all black. My son is an architect, and he had a computer program that allowed us to figure out gradations and placement and all that kind of thing. So he helped me figure this out, and then I knit it. A lot of the white windows are top stitching. So it's not all knit in. And it's the same on the back as on the front.
What a great collaboration.
Oh, it was. We had a lot of fun with this.
Sweet. Let's hear about these.
Oh, I had a Shiba Inu, and those dogs have a very thick undercoat. So for a while I was saving the brushings, and he died the summer of 2021. I joined the Handweavers Guild, I think it might have been in September. And I knew that people had spun dog hair. And so I asked if someone would be willing to do that for me. And Catherine Messina, bless her heart forever, she volunteered. And so we figured out how much of the dog hair, the maroon, is French Angora that I probably have had. I still have a bunch of it. I've probably had it for at least 40 years and had used some of it, but it was perfect to use with the dog hair yarn. She told me to be careful because we're going to be very, very warm. And I said, don't worry about that. I have trouble finding something that keeps my hands warm enough. And these do it. They are very warm, and certainly wearing them, remembering my doggie, is very touching.
Very meaningful. And so generous of Catherine.
Oh,
I was at that meeting on Zoom, and it was a lovely exchange.
yeah, she was wonderful. She really was. And she really loved doing it. I mean, she had spun dog hair before. So this was not completely new to her, but it was a whole experimenting, sampling process. And she had a good time with it, I'm glad to say. And I'm looking forward some year to actually meeting her in person.
Yeah. Oh, let's hear this one.
This is a little lap blanket. I really love having something very portable. A lot of my knitting is not. So these were a lot of fun. I made some of them when I was on vacation, sitting on a beach by a pond. Each one is different. They used different techniques. The yarns are different. Some of them are wool and some of them have acrylic in them, and I will never wash it. I mean, I'm never going to need to, but I wouldn't, because I don't know how the different fibers would react. And it hangs on my wall, and my husband and I both really enjoy it. And it's lined, obviously, and it was difficult to line it because a lot of the squares came out different sizes, and it was a challenge. Also, there's embroidery in it.
Oh, let's see.
The bottom square in the middle,
Yeah.
that's embroidered.
Oh, wow. Well, I love the shape of that.
Yeah. I pretty much followed the directions, the designs that came as a bunch with this project.
Oh, now these are the curtains behind you. Beautiful. Let's see.
Actually, Katie, these are not the curtains behind me. It's at Order Bronson Lace in, I think it's 5-2 pearl cotton, and I do a lot of curtains in this structure. These actually are, my son looms large in my legend. They're for my son. The windows are huge. They were 45 by 71. Yes. So I did it in 2 panels. It was, I probably 2, 4, 8. I probably put at least 9 yards on my loom. And it was pretty wide. When I finished it, they were too short, and there was a gap at the top. So I wove valances, and I don't remember if I rethreaded the loom. I don't remember what I did, but these were a project.
Wow.
It was a lot of yarn. Also, I documented this and posted it on Facebook, starting with the cones of yarn and ending probably with this photograph.
Oh, wow.
It was fun to do that, to really
I'm sure.
share. Yeah, to share this whole process with people who probably didn't know anything about it.
Beautiful drape, beautiful light, diffusion of light. Wow. Good work, Francesca. Wow.
Thank you, Katie.
Oh, some tapestry.
Well, I put these in partly because the 2 on the left were my introduction to Peggy. She was giving a course in Oriental rug weaving at a Y on the East Side, and I really didn't care what she was teaching. I wanted to experience what she was like as a teacher. So I did these 2. The one on the bottom, the background pile is shorter than the cube. So it's a little bit sculptural.
Wow. I see the shadow of it, so I see how
Yeah.
the cube is raised. Wow.
So that was the beginning of my history with Peggy. The one on the right, I took a course in Navajo rug weaving with a Navajo weaver at a place called Omega. I don't know if you know Omega.
Yeah.
And this was the only thing that I did in this style. All 3 of them, I never went back to doing any of that again. That was just a kind of a sampling of, to satisfy my curiosity.
That's great to do. What types of looms did you use on these 3?
For both of them, we had to construct our looms. That was part of the class. And like an idiot, I moved, I think it was in 2015, and I got rid of both of them. And I just, like I tear my hair that I didn't keep one of them. It was just so stupid. Anyway, I didn't. So if I ever want to do this kind of thing again, I'll just have to figure something out. But I can't believe I got rid of both of them.
We all have those kinds of regrets. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in purge mode and it kind of goes into overdrive.
I almost got rid of all my weaving equipment. I hadn't done any weaving maybe in a couple of years. And I thought, well, why am I hanging on to all this? And then I thought to myself, I cannot honestly say that I am never going to want to weave again. And so I kept everything. And it's a good thing.
That's good. That's good to hear. This is beautiful.
In 1990, I went to Penland in the Blue Ridge Mountains in North Carolina and took a course in clothing design with Tim Vaness was the weaver and Catherine Gremley was the clothing designer. And this really was an exercise in getting away from my comfort zone in terms of colors. I'm always gearing towards the roses and the blues and the mauves and all of that. So this was kind of, okay, Francesca, do something else. And Tim was great. So, and I love it. It was funny in terms of color. One day he had all these, I don't remember what it's called, but all the squares of different color paper. But he told us to choose 4 pieces of paper and colors that we liked. And I thought, oh, goody. And so I chose my 4. And then he said, now pass them to the person on your left. Oh, yes.
Oh
yes.
my gosh, that's so, wow.
And I ended up with bright yellows and oranges and shocking, I don't know what. It was just so funny. And we did paper weaving with them. We had a great paper cutter. So I made really little strips. I love paper weaving. So that's what this one was.
Now, did that class influence your use of color going forward?
Well, I wish I could say it did, and I'm not sure. I still tend to stay in a comfort zone.
Or be true to your preferences?
Oh, that's a nice way to put it. Thank you. It was a wonderful exercise.
Oh, I was so intrigued by this whole thing. Let's hear about it.
These are all scarves. They're unmercerized cotton and silk noil. The patterns come from Marianne Powell, 1000 Plus Patterns, which is a book all of shadow weave. I love shadow weave, obviously. I'm actually wearing a shadow weave scarf now. And I make these to sell. It's the only thing I make to sell. I usually just sell them at the chorus that I belong to. But somebody suggested I build up a real stock of them, and there's a fair just before Christmas at one of the synagogues up here, and that I have enough so that I could get a table and maybe sell them. So I'm not doing anything at the moment, and I might just get started on that.
Good. So I noticed these are all the same warp, and then you have the different weft colors sampled in a little bundle there.
Yeah, and they're different threadings. Like those are probably the same threading. The ones over there on the left, both red ones, and the ones behind them are probably from the same threading. It's a wonderful book. I mean, it just has so many possibilities. It's ridiculous. I love that book.
Oh, I like practical. Give me practical weaving. Let's hear it.
Oh my goodness, practical. I have dish towels. You wouldn't believe how many I've got. Sets of placemats. I mean, I've got the curtains I made a set of napkins and swore that I was not going to be worried about getting them dirty. So my pot holders, they're pot holders. And they took a lot of figuring out. There's insulation in them, both regular thin cotton batting and batting that has metallic threads in it, so that they're heat proof. They're really heat proof.
Wow.
And I remember going down to a fabric store, a quilting store down in Manhattan to get the padding. And it was just before the pandemic. It was just before shutdown. So I came home with a good project.
Good
And
time.
these I give away. I give these away.
Now, you bring up going into Manhattan, getting supplies. Has living in New York or very close to New York influenced you as in your crafts or your weaving?
Only in the sense that I go to museum exhibits. That's really the only sense. I get most of my yarn from Halcyon up in Maine, and some more recently from a company called Gist. But it mainly from going to museum exhibits.
Oh, I'm so curious about these bags. These are beautiful.
In, I think it was 2021, I finally bought a second loom. It's a shacked flip, a rigid heddle loom with a 20-inch weaving capacity. And I haven't used it a whole lot, but I thought this would be a good project for my rigid heddle. These are bags made out of plarn. The warp is unmercerized cotton, again, leftovers from other projects. And the weft is cut up plastic bags from the supermarket.
Wow. How wide was the plarn?
3/4 of an inch.
Quarters. Wow. Did you do all that manually scissors, or did you have like a rotary cutter, or?
There's a way of folding it and cutting it so it ends up in one long strip.
Oh, fun.
And I used a rotary cutter to cut the strips. It was time consuming, but I kind of got into a rhythm with it. And I often think, well, so what if it's taking up time? When I finish this project, I'm only going to need another one. So why be in a hurry?
That's right.
I made 4 of these.
Beautiful. I can see the warp through.
Yes.
Beautiful stripes.
I was surprised that they showed up that way because close up, it's hard to see them. And I was a little disappointed because it was a lot of work. But they do show up.
Right. Oh, this is so pretty. Let's hear about this.
Let's see. I had one of those once in a lifetime friends who lived in California, and she was battling ovarian cancer. And that was in the early 90s. And those days it was a death sentence. So I wanted to make her something that she could just wrap herself in and feel all the warmth of sunshine and the goodness of fresh air and healthiness. And I really feel as if there was some kind of spirit somewhere that helped me make this, because I'm astonished that I actually made it. It's 45, it's 42 by 64. As you can see, it was done in 2 strips, or maybe you can't.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And it's the weft is brushed mohair, and the warp is some kind of wool. And after she died, it was sent back to me. So I love having it.
So there was some kind of guidance that you helped you?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, it's beautiful. Boy, and your work just looks so gorgeous there. A lot of warmth about that story.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
Yeah. it was really interesting for me to go through what I've made, because a lot of it I didn't really remember that clearly. I didn't think it was that important. I kind of undervalued it. So your reaction to it really just kind of blew me away. Thank you so much. Really. And I think part of my feeling is that the last piece, I mean, she died a long time ago, but you know, it doesn't go away.
Mhm. I've heard other people talk about sometimes we undervalue our work. What do you think can be done so that we do see the value of our work?
Well, certainly sharing it helps. One of your questions was something about being in a guild, what I value about it. And one of the things I value about it is feedback. Just plain and simple. That's one of the things that I value about being in a guild. It really helps a lot to have feedback. I mean, anything I make, my husband says, "Oh, that's so wonderful." But to put it out there in the wider realm is important.
And with people who are so talented,
Oh my goodness, the work that people in the Handweavers Guild do is, I mean, it just, I am just awed. The creativity, the innovative use of materials, the complicated structures, like you with your deflected double weave. I mean, I can't even conceptualize these things. It's very, that all of that is really, really different from the weaving I do. I'm a practical weaver, things that can be used. And I think I was not valuing that adequately. I was feeling intimidated by a lot of the work at the Weavers Guild. And I guess I don't need to do that anymore.
That is really meaningful. I mean, even doing the bed jacket for your grandmother at 13, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Along the lines of weaving things for practical use, I think that is the highest calling for a weaver. I really do. To have it in your home is like the biggest, or someone's home is the like the ideal gallery. That it's used in someone's home, to me, that's the gallery what I want to be in.
Now that you mention it, when Catherine finished and I finished the mittens, I had some new dish towels that I had made, and I had the pot holders, and I said to her, "I'm giving you something. Which do you want? Do you want a towel or pot holders? And if you don't tell me which one you want, I'm going to just send you something. So you better tell me." So she asked for a towel and I sent her one, and I just love that she has it. And every time I use one of the ones from that set, I think of her and how wonderful it was to collaborate with her. So yeah, little pieces of me.
Yeah, and that I'm sure she thinks the same way when she picks up and uses that towel. What a good feeling. I mean, that to generate good feeling like that, that's purposeful work.
And connection, because I feel connected to her.
So can you talk more about connection with
Sure.
part of it?
Well, one of the things is a sense of community. And the pandemic had to be good for something. It brought us Zoom, because your meetings take place. It would be a schlep for me to get to them. So I'm absolutely loving that I can be part of it. Inspiration. I mean, as I said, the things that I see people doing just, I mean, it just blows me away totally. So and the feedback. I also belong to the Big Apple Knitters Guild. And I've belonged to that for I don't know how many years, a long time. And it's the same thing. Fortunately, we're meeting in person and have been probably for at least a year now, maybe even a bit longer. Fully vaccinated, masks still. So I get the same kind of thing from the Knitters Guild.
How did you know about the New York Guild of Handweavers?
I think I must have seen a table at Vogue Knitting.
Oh, wow.
And I think maybe your table was next to the Knitters Guild table, or certainly it was in the same area. And I mean, I've been a weaver for 40 years. So, you know, like, well, why not? Yeah, I'm pretty, and that's also how I found out about the Knitters Guild at Vogue Knitting Live.
So who or what do you find inspiring?
A lot of times it's something I've seen and think I want to replicate. In fact, one of the profiles I looked at on YouTube was Charlene Marietti, and she had a double weave vest, black and white, with several different patterns in it, probably all done on the same warp with the same threading. And I thought, gee, that looks interesting. Let me just see about that. I get a lot of inspiration from things at Vogue Knitting. Sometimes I want to explore a weave structure, use up bits and pieces of yarn that are left over, and those usually go into dish towels. And or someone asks me for something, like my son, God bless him, a table runner for his coffee table, placemats, the curtains. I mean, a lot of times I'll go to him, I'll say, you know, I'm bored with what I've been doing. I need a project. And he'll say, well, Mom, how about making me a? So, and we usually collaborate on the design.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
Oh, it is.
What impresses you when you look at other fiber artists' work?
The innovative use of materials, the way they conceptualize color, which I'm not good at. I think those are the two main things.
So do you ever get discouraged or stuck on a project or unmotivated? And how do you move through that?
That doesn't often happen to me, I'm happy to say. I have a sweater that's been languishing because I got to a point where I didn't know what to do with it. And so it's just sitting there. But for the most part, that doesn't happen. When it does, I usually put it aside and kind of wait for more inspiration somehow.
Do you attribute that to you just love what you do? So there's not a point that you get stuck, or?
I think that may be it. I love all the steps in the process. So I don't like tying up my heddles down at the bottom, the treadles. That I don't like. But yeah, I'm down on the floor, I'm under my loom, and that I'm not crazy about. But really, the rest of it, I enjoy. And as I said, I think to myself, well, what's the hurry? I'm only going to need another project when this one is done. So yeah, I do have one big thing that I need help with. I went to Penland in 2014 and I did a paper making course with a Korean paper maker. And I came home with so much paper that I made and I don't know what to do with it. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. Oh, I'll be curious over time if
Yeah.
something.
Don't hold your breath. Don't. Yeah.
What would you say to people starting out in art or fiber art?
Ah, embrace the unexpected and give up always being in control. There are no mistakes, only learning opportunities.
Well, what's ahead for you in your work?
Well, I'm at a funny place right now because I don't have a weaving project and I'm toying with a knitting project. I would love to find something to do with my paper. Maybe I saw something about spinning paper.
Hmm.
So maybe that's a possibility. I think I'd like to learn how to spin. I bought a drop spindle and some roving before the pandemic, and I dabbled in it a little. I found it very fidgety using a drop spindle. And I don't know whether I just need to push through that till I get more comfortable with it, or just as I was not going to work on a table loom because that was fidgety and I had concerns about my rigid heddle, I just may never want to use a drop spindle. There's charcoal wheels, and I think there's somebody in my neighborhood who actually is a spinner and teaches. So, kind of toying with that. In terms of weaving, I'd like to explore clasped weft. I think it would open up me to being freer and not know exactly what I'm going to do when I buy the yarn, because that's how far back I go. So I think that would be really good for me, just to kind of see where I go and what happens. And I think that's probably it. Find something to do with my paper.
Sounds like some playful creativity ahead for you.
Yeah, I think there are some possibilities.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you, Francesca. This has been so fun.
Oh, thank you, Katie.
And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like, comment, and share, and subscribe to the New York Guild of Handweavers YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the New York Guild of Handweavers, please go to nyhandweavers.org. See you in the next video, and until then, happy weaving.